In 1978, professor and historian Yu Yingshi led a group of American sinologists to mainland China. When reflecting upon that experience, he said, "Communist China is not a normal society where people can live and thrive. The sense of trust among people has been broken. Interest and competition became the core of people-to-people relationships. Politics permeated all aspects of society. I don't think that China is the same nation that I knew anymore. I didn't feel like I truly returned to China. After I came back to the US, I was sluggish for several months. The Chinese culture that I am familiar with has disappeared. Since then, I felt that it is no longer my motherland." Someone shared about Mr. Chen Haitao, a former researcher at Dunhuang Research Academy, originally known as the National Research Institute on Dunhuang Art. In April 2020, when he was a visiting scholar at Harvard University, he issued a declaration of withdrawal from all CCP-affiliated organizations using his real name. Later, he wrote several articles to share about the grueling journey that he personally went through that helped him wake up to the CCP's lies. Someone shared that recently a new statement regarding bypassing the Great Firewall was issued by the Xinjiang government. Someone asked the question, if I'm bypassing the Great Firewall for the purpose of doing research for schoolwork, not for doing bad things against the government, would this be okay? Then the official response was, as long as you use circumvention software in China, no matter what your purpose is, whether learning English or doing research, it would still be considered illegal. Someone said, then the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Hua Chunying and Zhao Lijian should surrender to the Public Security Bureau as soon as possible, given that they bypass the Great Firewall all the time. Someone said, colleges, government agencies, and some corporations all have reserved access to uncensored internet. Someone said, then in this case, all members of the scientific research teams in Xinjiang universities should be arrested. They use Google Scholar on a daily basis. They should just use Baidu Scholar in the future. Someone noted, according to the CCP's cybersecurity law, it is indeed illegal to circumvent the firewall, but this cybersecurity law itself conflicts with the Chinese constitution that it also established, because the constitution stipulates that the Chinese people have the freedom and right to obtain information. Therefore, this cybersecurity law is unconstitutional. Someone said, there is no rule of law in Communist China, but only rules that are in place to silence dissent. Someone shared that since 2020 in Tongxiang of Zhejiang province, a governance point system has been implemented. Ordinary people received a form that is printed with a checklist of steps to take. It listed various things that people might encounter in their daily life, all of which were divided into two different categories. One that adds points, the other that leads to deductions. The first includes so-called outstanding performance such as reporting illegal crimes, as well as participating in daily matters such as classifying waste. The purpose of the deduction item list is to tell ordinary people what situations are not allowed to occur, such as discordant neighbor relations, violating family planning policy, submitting unreasonable petitions, among others. The village government will announce the ranking quarterly, and villagers with a score of more than 100 can receive rewards. Someone said, in other countries, people rate and give score to the government, but in Communist China, the opposite is true. Someone shared that recently Vietnam captured dozens of Chinese citizens from Guangxi at the China-Vietnam border. They smuggled to Vietnam to look for work. Since last year, many Chinese people have smuggled into Vietnam. The CCP is now building walls in some areas to prevent more from escaping. Someone felt that this phenomenon shows that the original industrial chain in China has been transferred out, and that China's economy is rapidly deteriorating. Someone said, in the US, the government builds a wall to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in, while in China, the CCP builds a wall to prevent its own people from escaping. This propaganda banner says that the Chinese people are required to truthfully fill in their household income as well as spending. Well, clearly, the opposite is true in normal societies where officials are the ones that are required to be transparent. Someone said, in China, officials' property is a state secret. Someone joked, this is actually the CCP being considerate of the public and the Chinese people because they will feel sad after the officials' assets are actually disclosed. Someone shared that Thomas Paine once said, "Those who expect to reap the benefit of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigues of supporting it." Someone said, "Growing up in China, the Chinese people does not have any kind of freedom, as it entirely belongs to the party." Someone shared that at present, the CCP has illegally arrested 8,000 to 10,000 Mongolians and forced them into re-education camps for brainwashing. Inner Mongolia is essentially becoming the next Xinjiang. Here, as reported that the CCP again slandered the Inner Mongolian protests as instigated by foreign forces. On October 28th, the CCP's official media announced that 4 department-level officials of the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region have been put under investigation. These include Su He, former party secretary and director of the state-owned Assets and Supervision and Administration Commission; Xu Huhe, former party secretary and director of the Department of Justice and party secretary of the Autonomous Region Prison Administration Bureau; Li Cai, secretary and chairman of the Hulunbuir CPPCC Party Committee, and as well as Wang Junfeng, director and party secretary of the Emergency Management Department. Someone speculated perhaps they were investigated because they did not stand on Beijing's side after it decided to forcefully implement Mandarin teaching in Mongolian schools. Someone said this is perhaps a sign of the internal cleansing that the CCP has begun to take during the 5th plenary session. Perhaps upon listening to her remarks and watching her speak, people could gain an idea about how Trump's newly appointed Supreme Court Justice grew up.
Then he said those words I will never, ever in my life forget. I, Donald J. Trump, am running for president. And he talked about all these issues. And one of the other reasons I like him is because this is my favorite reason. We will build a wall on our southern borders. And Mexico, no buts about it, Mexico will pay for the wall. Mexico, not us. Mexico, one way or another, they are paying for that wall. They will.
Do you talk about this to your teacher?
Oh yeah, she's actually a Republican.
Oh, she is? Does anybody in your school give you a hard time for supporting Mr. Trump?
Lots of the kids in my class do. Mostly the 6th graders do a lot, you know. Yeah.
What do they say to you?
Well, they really know me for my golden jacket I love, but then they say, "Oh, it's Trump girl," and stuff like that. But you know, I don't let it get to me.
So what are the major problems you see in this country?
Immigration, you know, I love the immigrants. If they come here legally. I don't like the word illegally, I like legally. And if they're not going to do that, we have to put some precautions.
As a kid, what do you see as, other than immigration, what is the other problems that you see?
Education. The teachers union controls everything. So I like how Donald Trump put in charge of education a lady named Miss Betsy, I think.
Betsy DeVos?
Yes, Miss Betsy DeVos. And I mean, she's just great. She's doing everything we need to. And I heavily support school choice.
Did your parents get you involved in politics?
Not really. Actually, my mommy was a Ted Cruz supporter in the primaries. I told her on the primary the day of voting, I told her to vote for Trump. She needs to vote for Trump. She didn't listen to me, but that's okay. But now, after the primary, she realized the mistake she did. I like Ted Cruz, you know? Just not as much as Donald Trump.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I'm going to graduate from Penn State University, be in the Army for 5 years, be a police officer, be a homicide detective, be a private investigator, all while having the hobby as an Egyptologist and an astronomer. And then I'll retire, become a judge, and then if the country really needs me, I'll run for president. Yes, on the Supreme Court.
Child, we will take you in. Child, we will bring you home. You'll be a flower that sees the spring, soon a dove flying high over the storm.